Hey, our topic is Victor Hugo and Les Mis, and so yeah, I'll be covering Victor and then Emily will do the book. Your boy was born on February 26th, 1802. His father was an important soldier. No, he wasn't. His father was an important officer in the army, and he was always traveling for work because, you know, he's an officer in the army, and he brought his family with him. So while Victor was traveling with his dad, he gained interest in nature and beauty. In 1803, his mom decided to stop traveling with his dad, so she stayed in Paris while he was gone. Graduated with his degree in law from two places that I cannot really pronounce. I'm gonna put these words up on the screen. Hopefully I've done that by now. However, he never used that education in his career. By 1816, he'd already scribbled down like 2 tragedies and a play. His mother greatly influenced his writing career, and she encouraged him to start his own review. In the review, he reviewed other strong poets. In 1822, he published his first book of poetry. His first book of poetry gained him a pension from the king for its reviews on classical form and political inspiration. A year later, he published his first novel. Because of this novel, another journalist invited him to join, the Cenacle, which was a group of people who were all interested in romanticism. Hugo's career really kickstarted when he published the novel Cromwell. He published that in 1827. The novel was extremely intricate, and it was mostly acknowledged for its strong romantic features. Sorry, I'm reading off a computer on the floor. Your boy Victor went on to become one of the greatest romanticism writers of his era with his novel Les Mis. Like, bro, nice. A real quick little thing on his family life. He married Adele Foucher in 1822, and he had 5 children, 2 of which died before Victor did. His wife died on August 27th, 1868, and then he had a mistress named Juliet, who was an actress. And then Juliet died on May 11th, 1883, and then Victor died on May 22nd, 1885.
One of Victor Hugo's novels, Les Miserables, was about this guy, Jean Valjean. So he goes to prison because he steals a loaf of bread. He's originally sentenced to 5 years of prison, but because of trying to escape multiple times, he ends up being in prison for 19 years. Once he finally gets out, he has to go and find somewhere to stay just for the night. So he ends up staying with this bishop. And he's not fully on track yet, so he wakes up middle of the night and he steals his silver, his plates, his anything with value. The police get him eventually, and they bring him back to the bishop, and the bishop says, "You forgot, this was a gift. You forgot the candlesticks, these silver candlesticks that I gave you. Just remember that you have a chance now, you have a life now, do something with it." Then they go to So Valjean goes undercover as this guy named Monsieur Madeleine. Everybody loves him. Everybody thinks he's the nicest guy. He does all this stuff for the poor. He's so selfless that he ends up getting elected mayor. And he's the mayor of this town. One day he is helping this guy who got stuck under a carriage. This guy Javert, who is his prison guard, comes up and he's like the police now. And he sees Valjean, or Madeleine, lifting this thing in the same way that he saw him do it in prison when he had to lift a mast of a ship. And so then he's like, "I know you from somewhere, don't I?" Another character in this novel is Fantine. She is a single mother after she has her child Cosette and her husband ends up leaving her. So she cannot provide for Cosette, so she has to leave her with these innkeepers. And these innkeepers do not treat Cosette well. They favor their own children, which you can't really blame them, but anyway. So they favor their own children much more than they do Cosette. And then we'll return to them later. Like, whatever. It's fine. So Fantine ends up meeting Valjean as Monsieur Madeleine when she is working as a prostitute because she cannot afford to provide for herself. So she is working as a prostitute when this guy comes up and starts mocking her for her business. So she spits on him, and then she is getting arrested. And Madeleine sees this, and he's like, hey man, this isn't cool. Yeah, no. So Madeleine is like, Javert, you can't arrest her. It was not her fault. And he sees that she's sick, so he takes her to this hospital. And it's French Revolution times. It's not a big hospital, you know? But he takes her to this hospital, and he cares for her. And then she tells him about her daughter, Cosette. And she asks that he go get her for her. And she's not feeling well. She is like in this bad situation. But while he's on his way to go get her, Javert realizes, like, dude, Monsieur Madeleine, he's actually Valjean, who's like broken his parole, been everywhere. So he goes and he's like, hey, I'm getting this girl's daughter for her. Can I have 3 days? But he escapes. So he's like, he comes back, he comes to Fantine, and he's like, hi, I got arrested, but I'm still gonna go get your daughter. However, by the time he comes back with Cosette, the mother has passed away. So they are like on the run because like they have to go back undercover. They can't find Valjean because he's like not a good person in their eyes. So he goes undercover, and then we meet the character Marius. And Marius is this French revolutionary guy. He is like all about the rights of the people. And he sees Cosette and her father in the town, and he ends up falling in love with her. And it's kind of creepy. He starts stalking her, and somebody notices, and they tell Valjean, and he's like, I can't have anybody knowing who I am. That's freaky. So 6 months later, Marius sees Cosette again, and he's like, oh my gosh, she's back. This is crazy. So then he decides to like leave little love letters in the gate to her house, and she will get them every day. But one of the innkeeper's daughters, Eponine, she secretly has a thing for Marius, and she's like, I can't have this happen. I can't have him end up with her. So then she leaves an anonymous note saying that Valjean should move. And Valjean, being on the run, is like, yeah, let's do it. Let's move. Somebody knows we're here. So he moves. Okay. So then they move, and Marius ends up getting into the revolution, and he leaves a note for her at her house saying where he's located in his troops. And Valjean finds this, and he's like, wow, like, he might die in this war, like, that's a good thing. He won't take Cosette away from me. Then he feels guilty, so he ends up joining the revolution, and he gets sent to the troops, and he's like part of Marius's troop. And then they're sitting there, and Javert is a spy. So they are shooting them down, and like all these guys are dying. Like pretty much everybody is dying except for Marius and Valjean. So then Valjean has to save Marius because he doesn't want him to die. He's like, but Cosette will be heartbroken. Cosette cannot take this. So he ends up dragging him away while he's like injured through miles of sewage stuff. And while he's in the sewage, he sees the innkeeper, Thénardier, there, and he's like got this key to open this gate that Valjean has to go through. And Thénardier, the innkeeper, is assuming that he is like working or like stealing this body, like stealing the money off of Marius. So he's like, give me money and I will open this gate for you. So then he gives him a few like sous, like the money they have, and the guy opens the gate for him, but he sees Javert is there trying to arrest the innkeeper, and he ends up like sticky situation. Like Javert is like, hey man, I wanna like arrest you, okay? So being a bit kinder this time, Javert's like agreeing to let Valjean go and see Cosette and say goodbye one last time. So he goes and sees if Javert is still out there, which he isn't, surprisingly. Javert is seeing that this man is kind, this man has changed, and he's done much nicer things than even the police officer pursuing him has done. And he goes, and he ends up committing suicide because he's like, do I arrest him or do I like leave this man who's doing all this good? So he ends up committing suicide, and it's like a bad thing, like dang. So Marius and Cosette end up getting married, and on their wedding night, Valjean ends up saying to Marius about how he's an ex-convict, but he doesn't get around to telling him why. So Marius freaks out. He's like, dude, what the hell did he do? And he ends up assuming the worst, and he is like trying to keep Cosette away from this man who's like an ex-convict, like, you know, protecting her. And they end up seeing Valjean less frequently and like shorter periods of time. They end up not seeing him at all. But then Marius figures out what he did and how little it was and how much of a better person he became afterward. So he goes to visit Valjean with Cosette to apologize, and he realizes that Valjean is on his deathbed. And Valjean ends up dying, and all he wanted was an unmarked gravestone. And that is what he got.